Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to answer one of those questions that's been on a lot of people's minds, especially if you overland or camp and you own a Jeep 4xe. One of the promises of this vehicle was the built-in battery and the ability to use that power when off-grid to power all sorts of devices and keep you going on longer and longer trips. So today we're going to see how long that Jeep will power that AC, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a fatal flaw with the Jeep 4xe in the current version and how Jeep can address it in the future. All right, first things first, let's talk about setup. So we've got our 12-volt battery here running off the main battery of the Jeep 4xe. One of the things I've done is come up with a nice Anderson plug style connector. I'm running that through a dual output 200 amp Blue Sea Systems fuse block just to protect this setup. This is really nice. This actually wraps up, folds up, stores right down here when we're on the road. One key element of this setup, and you'll see this once we get it going, is you need to run this right here on top of this latch block and keep the lid closed, the hood closed, because there is a sensor right there that detects when the hood is closed, and this thing will not operate correctly once it's open. So you want to keep this latch closed, but keep this one open and run your cords. The second piece of this is right here, the pure sine wave inverter from Ampeak. The reason I really like this 200 watt inverter, for one, it actually has several different plugs over here, including a DC output and a couple of USBs. All right, we are all connected, up and running. So we've got the hood latched down on the left side, on the driver's side. We're running our cables underneath here, running it through our Anderson plugs and cables, through the inverter, onto the air conditioner, which is currently running on low cool mode. Check this out. Right now we're running at 450 watts, 4 amps. So we'll see how long that lasts. Right now, if you can see, a little over 6 minutes. There we go. One issue right away with 4xe is you cannot get those halos to turn off while this thing is running in this mode. So if you're out at camp, that's a little bit of a problem. While the AC is still running, we're up to 16 minutes. I want to talk a little bit about what the use case here is. And, the primary one is right behind me. That is the Sasquatch Expedition Campers Highland 60. Okay. And that is a 1,900-pound dry, go anywhere off-grid camper that we absolutely love. We have a blast with this thing, but there are times where we really need some additional power. And we ran into that on a recent trip to New Mexico and Arizona. I've got a great video coming up all about that trip. So like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll make sure that you get all that content. One of the issues that we ran into is we actually lost one of our breakers that enabled the solar controller and the solar charging. So for the entire week, we were without our solar panels. And so being able to utilize this battery to power some devices off grid, things like making sure that the fridge operated optimally. We had a portable AC with us, and we wanted to be able to use that to cool off the cabin of the camper, because in West Texas, even at 10 o'clock at night, it was 93 degrees inside the trailer. And we encountered temperatures closer to 120 degrees in Phoenix on that trip for 24 hours. So just having that power was really important. Okay, so, folks ask all the time, well, it's a plug-in hybrid. You should be using that to drive around. But once you're on a long road trip, that really becomes irrelevant. You, especially towing, you will use that hybrid system battery in about 5 miles. So the rest of the time, you're going to be relying on the 2-liter turbo. And it's far more advantageous for overlanders and campers to be able to preserve the large battery in the 4xe for utilizing at camp. And there is one big issue with that, which we'll get to later in the video. Everything's still running over here. Let's check in. 460 watts, 470. But we're still trucking along. I just checked the battery on the Jeep 4xe. It's used about 1%. It's dropped from 99 to 98. I can already anticipate in the comments, since I talked about the Highland 60, some folks asking more about it. So let's just take a quick look. Again, 1,900 pounds dry. Trailing arm suspension on the rear. Tons of storage on this thing. Yes, you can rent it on Outdoorsy. If interested, check it out. But let's take a look inside. Full queen size bed on the interior cabin. Huge storage shelf up here. more storage cabinets, power, heat, you name it. Just a really cool place to be. Custom aluminum storage racks on the side, as well as the top where we've got our rooftop tent. Dual propane tanks, one on each side of the camper. Fully articulating hitch. These steps support your weight, so you can get up top, get everything you need, get to the 270, get to the 4x4 Colorado tent, solar panels up top. Just an incredible, incredible trailer. Let's go check back in on the AC. All right, 27 minutes and 30 seconds. Still running just fine. Inverter fans are running. Every once in a while, the fans on the Jeep are running. Most importantly, the AC is running nice and cool here in the garage. Yes, the doors are open, but for the purposes of this experiment, the 30-minute cutoff is what we're waiting on. Okay, so at 30 minutes is when the timer on the Jeep 4xe traditionally shuts off. I fully expect the Jeep to shut off, but we're going to see what the actual behavior with the inverter looks like at that 30-minute mark.
All right, future me here, because I forgot a couple of really key points on this video. Number one, we actually did a full review of this Wrangler 4xe, so go check that out. And number two, even bigger than that, we just wrapped up a new review of the Grand Cherokee 4xe. So you want to see that content, and I know you do if you're watching this one, make sure you do the subscriber thing so you don't miss out on all the future videos. Lastly, you will notice in this video a lot of weird things going on with the audio, different levels. I was definitely experimenting with some different mics, but hang in there. I promise the content is worth it, and you're gonna wanna see what the end result is at the end of the video.
All right, guys, right there, 30 minutes. Like I said, give or take a few seconds. Let's go see what the behavior is on our inverter. All right, our inverter is still running. So even though the Jeep shut off and the lights went off, this is still going. We're still drawing 450 watts and 4 amps. And this is something that folks on the 4xe forums clued me into, that even though it shuts off, it could still draw power for a while. And so we're just gonna watch and see how long this goes. Still powering the AC. Guys, check this out. So Brad at Trail Recon was with the Jeep guys on their proving grounds this last week. Really cool video you need to go check out. And that power box powers all your devices off grid with the 2024s, plugs into the Jeep's charging port. And there's some really cool info in that video that a little bit of late breaking news, I guess, on the generator mode, how the system in the 2024 will recharge when you're out on the road, maybe address some of the issues that I've had. So definitely go check that out. And sorry, Brad, for stealing some of your content, but I love hanging out here in the garage and watching all the cool things you do. Right here is the fatal flaw of the current Jeep 4xe. It's in the 3 modes, hybrid, electric, and e-save. And let me explain a little bit. The biggest problem with these modes is how the Jeep latches onto each. So hybrid is the default. You get in and out of the car on a daily basis. It's likely in hybrid. However, with a recent software update, the electric mode is latchable. And that means if I have chosen intentionally to be in electric mode and I push that button and I get out or I shut the car off, go in and out of the store, do whatever, come back, get in the Jeep, start it back up again, it will remain in electric mode and it will run the battery all the way down and then it will switch back over to hybrid. The problem for overlanding and camping is that the e-save mode is not latchable. Okay, so I can select it to conserve my battery while I'm driving to camp or driving across the state all day. But if I shut the Jeep off, go in a convenience store to use the restroom, fill up with gas, get out to look at some incredible vista or overlook, and I come back to the Jeep, it will default back to hybrid. It will not stay in e-save mode. And you say, well, just remember to put it in e-save mode. That's all fine and well, but everybody knows if you're on a long road trip, you're getting in and out of the car maybe 9, 10, 11 times a day. And if you forget one time, once, get distracted by kids or your wife asks you a question or you forgot to put the gas cap back on and you get out to do it again, within about 5 or 6 miles while towing that trailer, you're going to be without your battery. It's going to go all the way down to less than 1%. And folks, that is a real problem. I had a ton of problems on our road trip once I lost the battery of recharging the battery while driving. And that's a shame because I was doing 7, 8, 9 hours of driving a day. And unless you were essentially kick-starting that regen process, it just wouldn't go into that generator mode. Wouldn't do it. The only success I had on the trip is if I was on a steep decline coming down a mountain pass. And then every once in a while, with the regen mode on, going down those passes, it's like it would wake up and say, oh, you selected eSave, you selected the battery charging profile. Let's go ahead and do that. As soon as it did it, it was fairly quick to recharge, but that was few and far between. And that is the fatal flaw with the current Jeep Wrangler, is that, for all the promise and all of the mentions made by some journalists who wrote articles and even some very coy comments by Jeep engineers about this capability, it's just not that accessible. It's not that practical right now as currently configured. Check it out, everybody. We just rolled over 2 hours. The inverter is still going. The air conditioner is pumping out cold air. And maybe the coolest part, the Jeep has only used about 3% of its battery. I'm just pretty stinking stoked. Look, I'm going to shut this experiment down. It's been a lot of fun, but it's time to do a wrap up. So I'm listening to this inverter run in the background, and that is just music to my ears. We're well over that 2 hour mark of running this air conditioner, even though the Jeep shut off after 30 minutes. That's the good news of this video. We still have the issue with eSave not being lockable. Hopefully Jeep either fixes that in the future or the aftermarket through a Taser update comes along and provides us that capability. But overall, really, really happy with the result. Hey, special shout out to the Facebook 4xe community. You guys have just been incredible, very insightful in this process, and just love learning from you guys every single day. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate the support. Like, subscribe, do all of those things so you get the future content. And we end this the only way we know how, with the silent, awkward way.